Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
F&M Chairman Sidney Collie weighs in on the Montague constituency's controversial name change. That story straight ahead.
Dr. Dwayne Sands weighs in on recent boundary cuts. That story is coming up straight ahead.
The Parliamentary Registration Department begins distributing voter cards, plus
a 21-year-old man charged with murder. The story coming up.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, Free National Movement Chairman Sidney Collie is accusing the government of trying to promote a slave mentality among Progressive Liberal Party supporters by renaming the Montague constituency Freetown. He called this move an act of desperation. Jasmine Brown reports.
The F&M chairman says he's simply not buying the explanation given for the name change, as he insists it's less about historical significance and more about racial division.
Freetown, Old Montague. That's very interesting. And what I see is the PLP in a minor way, not as blatant as Sir Lyndon Pindling, but playing the race card.
The name change was announced by Prime Minister Perry Christie when the Boundaries Report was submitted in Parliament earlier this month. Christie said the name Freetown honors the ancestral heritage of a major part of the constituency. But Collie says he believes it goes way beyond that, insisting it appears the PLP is seeking to foster a slave mentality among its supporters.
They are appealing to the slave mentality sense of Freetown, free slaves, back to Africa.
Collie also pointed out that Freetown was the name given to an African city where formerly enslaved blacks settled in the 1700s.
Just by borrowing the term Freetown is to send a message to PLP supporters that we are separating you, and you are ours, and you are to vote PLP.
But that's not the only thing Collie took issue with. He also criticized the changes made to the constituency's boundaries lines. Hundreds of people currently residing in the Montague constituency will be voting in St. Anne's in the next general election. Collie says despite its tactics, he believes the PLP is in for a rude awakening.
Of course it's going to backfire. Lines and constituencies don't vote. People vote. And even if you draw the line through someone's house, it's not going to make a difference. When the wave comes, the PLP is going to be sorely surprised.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, the Parliamentary Registration Department may have just seen the bump in voter registration numbers it was waiting for. That according to Parliamentary Commissioner Sherlyn Hall, who was pleased to note that the current voter register has now exceeded 110,000 names.
As of this morning, we have 111,079. So we are growing steadily, 111,079. Well, let's put it this way. Before the convention, we used to take in around about 350, thereabouts. After that, we're taking 700 to 800 per day. You could make your own judgment.
On Wednesday, the House of Assembly approved the Boundaries Commission report, allowing the Parliamentary Registration Department to begin distributing new voters' cards to registered voters today.
The Constituencies Commission report was passed in Parliament, as you know, on Wednesday night, which I have a copy in my hand. And I think it is gazetted, I'm told, in the newspaper as well. So that means legally we can commence registering people based on the new 2017 maps. We have all of those ready, and that's what we're doing now, in fact, as we speak. So persons coming to register as of today can receive their cards immediately. Once they provide the right documentations, we can present to them their cards. Now, that raises the point, persons who registered as of yesterday, as of the 15th, before the 15th, those cards will go into our database. We will be issuing those cards sometime next week, because we are doing a transition as we speak from the electronic 2012 register to the electronic 2017 register.
The Boundaries Commission report outlined the creation of a new seat on New Providence, St. Barnabas, and the renaming of the Montague constituency to Freetown. Hall says the process has been smooth for voters registering in those areas.
No confusion. Don't listen to naysayers. No confusion.
Hall says the department will make an announcement next week, letting registered voters know when and where they can collect their new voters' cards.
And as the distribution of voters' cards begins, the F&M candidate for Elizabeth says not even boundary cuts and a new constituency will save the PLP from the beating he believes it will take on election night. Here's Giorgio Bain.
Despite having several polling divisions cut out of the Elizabeth constituency, Free National Movement candidate Dr. Dwayne Sands says he's not concerned about boundary cuts because there are more issues that are more concerning. An act of desperation is how Sands termed the Boundaries Commission report. The Elizabeth candidate says he believes the report was strategically tabled months behind schedule.
I don't have any issues whatsoever. They could add 1,000 seats. It shows the absolute desperation of a government that the people of the Bahamas have tuned out from. If you look at the shape of the boundary cuts, you have to be a skilled surgeon to cut those boundaries like that. And clearly, you know, there's a fellow named Jerry Roca who's meandering. So gerrymandering is legal, mind you. But the people looking on see it as an act of desperation.
Sands says the Boundaries report raised several issues far more concerning than the addition of another constituency or the renaming of another. His chief concern is the blatant disrespect he feels the government is showing for the Constitution by failing to meet the constitutionally mandated 5-year deadline.
We are in the midst of a serious problem with crime. And we talk about the rule of law. Well, the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. And so if our government flaunts the Constitution and says, but don't worry about that, we don't have to follow the Constitution, then why should I?
Sands added that Marathon MP Jerome Fitzgerald's justification as to why the report was changed even after commission members, such as St. Anne's MP Hubert Chipman, had signed it, is totally inadequate.
So the Minister of Education, the Honorable Jerome Fitzgerald, gets up and says, yeah, we changed it, but we didn't change it that much. You know, the boundaries didn't change and this didn't change. If you change a comma to a period, it is not the same document. And what the government should have done is to come out to all the parties and say, look, we changed this word, we changed this constituency from the name of Montague to Freetown. I know it's inconvenient, can you sign it again? The straw that broke the camel's back. And so it raises a question of honesty, integrity, transparency.
According to Sands, it is obvious that the odds are not stacked in his favor in the Elizabeth constituency, but he believes that the PLP's efforts to score another election victory will eventually backfire.
Quite frankly, despite the fact that there appears to be clearly an effort to stack the constituency of Elizabeth in somebody else's favor, not mine, I'm not concerned because boundaries don't vote.
Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
In other news, a young man was arraigned in court today for a gruesome murder that occurred early Monday morning. Kyle Joaquin was at court and tells us more.
With his father seated 2 rows behind him, 21-year-old Trevor Cooper was charged in the magistrate's court this afternoon with the February 13th murder of Frederick Ferguson. Ferguson was shot on Monday morning during an altercation outside a business establishment on West Bay Street. He died in hospital hours later. He was the 7th person killed in a 4-day span. In court today, the Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt informed Cooper that he was not required to enter a plea for the murder charge and could not be granted bail. A minute later, she was informed that there were 2 more charges for the 21-year-old. Cooper was then charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm, namely a black .40 pistol, and possession of ammunition, after he was reportedly caught with 4 rounds of ammunition. Cooper's attorney informed the Chief Magistrate that he had been hit in the face while in police custody and needs medical attention. He then showed her the wound on his nose. Ferguson Pratt ordered that he be allowed to see a doctor while on remand at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Cooper was also allowed to talk to his father before being taken away by police. The matter was adjourned until April 25th, when Cooper will be presented with the voluntary bill of indictment. Reporting from the Magistrates Court for our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Still to come on our news, the Rebels' 7's future in the F&M remains unknown. This as the party gears up for the upcoming election. That's coming up when our news returns.